to all of you guys who played with Zyra yesterday. You guys did an awesome job. Honestly, some of you are better than me, so that was an amazing thing to see. We're actually going to be featuring the highlights of you guys in those games on our YouTube channel and on our Instagram, so hopefully some of you guys can be featured in those. Once again, if you guys want to join in the fun, make sure to join us at 10:30 a.m. every single day. That's Pacific Standard Time, and we're also going to be streaming at night at 4:30 p.m. PST as well. And for our question of the day, which pro streamer or pro player would you want to see play with Zyra during his live class? Let us know down below. We're going to try and make that happen for you guys. All right, let's get into the video. When Riot releases new champions, there are three kinds of people. The first type are the people that permaban the new champion because they don't want to deal with whatever OP abomination Riot has cursed us with this time. I definitely fall into this category. The second type of people are the ones who first time it in solo queue, like the insane people that they are because they want to abuse what they assume will be a busted pick. Gives me flashbacks of when Set was released. Then there are the kind, responsible souls who try the new champion in normals first, like smart people, then abuse it in ranked games once they have a feel for it. This category is what you guys should all be aiming for. Why? Because new champions when they release are really, really strong. So we all know that Riot tries to release champions in a stronger state, if they can. And we all know this. But despite knowing this, we still end up getting Falcon punched into the ICU by release Set, or gunned down like a degenerate by release Aphelios, or beam cannoned from a full screen away by release and current Senna. Still needs a nerf. For once though, we're here to defend Riot's methodology. You see, Riot wants each new champion to succeed and find its own healthy niche in the ever-increasing roster of champions. The most common complaint I hear about the new champion releases is that Riot should have balanced things in the PvE, and they're incompetent for releasing this OP trash to live servers, and it slowly chips away at my mental stability every time I get obliterated by a champion that is 0-6. But it's not about balance. I have my fair share of grievances with Riot, but they do at least give us a decent grasp on this part of their game. The reason the PvE doesn't get used as this perfect testing ground to balance out a champion is simply this: they don't want to. The PvE is also a pretty small player population to get really good data from, so that's a factor as well. With that in mind, you have to understand that Riot's goal with a champion release is long-term oriented. They don't want to release a balanced champion, they want to release a champion that they can keep balanced in the long term. And to do that, they need each champion to have a dedicated player base as big as they can possibly manage. You've heard the expression, you only get one chance to make a first impression. Well, that's basically what's going on here. If a champion releases strong, it will invariably have a higher play rate than a champion that releases weak. That's to be expected, of course. I mean, everyone likes winning. Well, everyone other than the toxic one-tricks in my champ select who threaten to take their CC-less melee AD champion support if I don't give up my role. But for the most part, everyone is more likely to play a champion if they see it's doing well because it looks fun. And that's the key element here, fun. If you went for your first ever bike ride on a bike with no training wheels, then fall and badly hurt yourself, you'd be a lot less likely to ride a bike again. But if you have those training wheels and you kind of get a feel for what biking is like, then you have a much better chance at pursuing that interest because you had a good time. Champion strength on release is just Riot putting on those training wheels for a developing player base. Whenever you pick up a new champion, you know there's going to be a certain learning curve involved. That curve varies from champion to champion based on their difficulty, but it's always there in some way, shape, or form. If the champion is strong though, and you're having fun and winning games while you learn, it makes for a much better experience. You'll have to feel your way through what runes work, so Riot gives new champions padded stats for you to test out rune pages with minimal punishment as well. You have to test what kind of items seem to work, so the increased stats help with that as well. It doesn't even matter if you took Airy on release Set because he would curb stomp the opposition with or without it. But you could tell that he was a lot better with Conqueror, all without having to get demolished to learn that lesson. In a similar vein, Riot also likes to make ult cooldowns for new champions a bit lower than they know it should be. This isn't to make you frustrated, it's because a champion's ult is usually a key part of their identity, so having more access to that kit-defining ability helps players feel attached to what a champion is and how that champion performs. Think about your main. Why do you love them? It's probably because they have some iconic ability that really resonates with what you like to do in League of Legends. I like to bury people and then resurrect them as ghouls to do my bidding, and that's why I like Yorick. My friend likes to be a toxic POS, and that's why he likes TEemo. That's the feeling that Riot tries to capture with these new champions, and that's why their goal isn't to release a champion that's balanced right away. They want to attract as many players as possible, see the upper limits of a champion and the skill floor of a champion, then be able to appropriately adjust so that that champion can find a suitable home in whatever role they belong to without being too weak or too strong. The natural argument here is, but having a blatantly OP champion makes the game less fun for everyone who isn't playing them. And, well, that's true of course. It isn't really fun to get your teeth kicked in, especially by a set, but it's a necessary evil. However, just because we know that it's a necessary evil, we still feel really angry about it. As players play a champion more and more, it makes sense for the win rate of a champion to go up over time for that player. This is what Riot refers to as experienced win rate. A player with 50 plus games under their belt will have a much better grasp of a champion than a player with only 10 games. The early win rates, however, are expected to be low, like around 38 to 44% win rates on the first day of a champion's release are probably the norm, and that win rate is generally supposed to climb a bit each day for about 2 weeks, and that is when Riot reassesses the champion's strength. At that point, the champion's win rate generally reaches around 51% on the low end of the player experience and much higher on the upper end. That's Riot's soft goal for the immediate release, letting new players attain a 51% win rate without having to devote 50 games to mastering them, so that they can kind of see what it's all about. But what happened with the character Yuumi? It had only been a few days of a seemingly abysmal release win rate, 30.72% to be exact. The lowest release win rate of any champion up to that point. Players were fuming, absolutely mind blown that Riot would allow such a weak champion onto the live servers. And I was insta-surrendering when I had one on my team. As I mentioned though, Yuumi was an extremely unique champion, so learning her was much harder. The learning curve was way higher than most champions, in addition to the fact that she's somewhat at the mercy of whoever she's attached to. So there were kind of two players having to learn the champion at once every time she was chosen. Riot listened though, and they rolled out the buffs. Well, a natural progression happened, and people finally got a feel for Yuumi's unique playstyle and setup, so she started seeing a ton of success. Then she started seeing a lot more success, and then she started seeing a disturbingly unfair amount of success. The buffs ended up being too strong. The release stats weren't the problem, it was the learning curve of Yuumi that was the problem, and Riot ended up having to gut her a couple months later and even tweak her abilities and how they functioned. If everyone had just been patient and kept learning the champion, things most likely would have evened out pretty well for her, and she probably would have just been as strong as most other release champions, then been nerfed like they normally do it. At the end of the day though, because she ended up being so busted, people had a lot of fun playing with her, or developed a lot of fear of her. Even now, with a 48.27% win rate in Plat Plus, she has an 11.3% pick rate and a 15.2% ban rate. She has a solid player base even when she's not the best pick ever. A Yuumi who knows what she's doing though is still something to be feared, which is that sweet spot Riot aims to hit in the long run with their more unique or challenging champions. Strong for the experienced, weak for the newly initiated. This is why it's so important that Riot releases champions in a position of strength. Yeah, it sucks to play against them for the first few weeks to a month, but they have to do it so that the player population goes up. Even as we speak, Wukong players are menacing the Rift with their new rework damage numbers. God, I just got demolished by one today. It was awful. And when the Fiddle rework releases, you guys know he's going to be a terror as well. It's going to be agonizing, it's going to be soul crushing. But you know what? It'll give them the population density that they need to gauge strength and make them actually well-rounded champions instead of teeny niche picks that get played once every 1,000 games. I'm looking at you, Ivern. So that's the reasoning. Riot doesn't hate us, even though it may feel like it sometimes. They don't release champions in a busted state out of malice or incompetence or as some kind of silly prank. It's not even about filling their wallets with more money from people buying the new champ and its release skin, although I'm sure they're more than happy to receive that side of effect from it. It's all about developing a player base so that they can test a champion's fullest potential as soon as possible and balance it in the long term as soon as possible. It can be frustrating, but it's a necessary part of the game's life cycle, so the sooner you get accustomed to it and stop letting the anger distract you, the sooner you're going to start growing as a player. Okay, so now let's get into some advice. So when you see a new champion, what are you guys supposed to do? The very first thing you should be doing is figuring out what champion hard counters it. And I don't mean a slight advantage. I mean figure out what breaks its limbs, gouges its eyes out, and stomps that monstrous creation into the dirt, where it belongs, along with whatever asshole is trying to abuse the system to get a rank they don't deserve. Busted stats or not, you find that counter pick, put the new champ under your boot, and you take that free low. New champion releases are just Riot baiting out free counter picks for you. Easiest promos of your life. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, things are very crazy out there right now. I know that for a lot of you guys, it can be really stressful. Know that you guys have a family and a community with us. Join us every day on our live stream at 10:30 a.m. PST and 4:30 p.m. PST, and you guys can ask a bunch of questions, and we'd love to communicate with you guys. Once again, if you guys want to get better at League of Legends, make sure to go to proguides and find yourself a challenger coach right now. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.